China's industry is crumbling. Bankruptcy everywhere. People cry about hard life. After China's National Day, physical stores are closing down again. China's A-share Chi-Next index sees the largest drop in history. China's economy continues to decline, and all walks of life are in a deep depression. Physical stores are closing down one after another. Amid the wave of unemployment, more and more homeless people are appearing on the streets. A female blogger in Xi'an, Fujian. This is Wanda Golden Street in Huli, Xiamen. The video I shot at the beginning of the year showed that 50 stores had closed down, and now there are 40 stores. This should be the peak season for physical stores, but there are still so many stores closing down on one street. Mr. Li, a citizen of Xiamen, told NTD that the current economic situation is not good, people are not consuming, and physical stores are closing down one after another. Mr. Li, a citizen of Xiamen, the most prosperous Zhongshan Road and Jinshan Road were basically full of empty stores. This store can change 3 owners in a year. After taking over, there was no business for 2 or 3 months, and then they changed owners because they couldn't continue to operate. Mr. Li said that there was no business even during the National Day Golden Week. Mr. Li, a citizen of Xiamen, this is the quietest National Day since I came here more than 20 years ago. I work in the tourism-related industry. In previous years, our business was booming, but this year there is no business. People around me, including those in my living area who used to love traveling, don't travel anymore. Mr. Li revealed that many taxis in Xiamen have also stopped operating, and everyone has bought motorcycles to save costs. Mr. Wang, a shop owner in Dongguan, Guangdong. Now no one has basic consumption. We are operating without profit and struggling every day. It's so sad and anxious. I haven't bought any clothes in the past 2 years. Even the vegetable market doesn't have many people buying vegetables now. The video shows that on the deserted streets of a city, a street vendor had a mental breakdown, stamping his feet and wailing. Mr. Wang, a shop owner in Dongguan, Guangdong. Prices are rising now, including green vegetables, onions, and pork. When you open your eyes every day, you have to think about your rent and where your water and electricity bills are coming from. If you can't hold on, you can only endure it slowly. Going back to your hometown is a dead end. There isn't enough money to grow crops. There are many homeless people on the roadside now. Mr. Zhao, a resident of Shenyang. There are often many young people sleeping on the streets in train stations and squares in many big cities. Many people are so desperate that they have no desire to live. The video shows that in first-tier cities such as Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, and Shenzhen, a large number of young people are stranded in bridge tunnels, parks, and stations. After China's National Day, physical stores are closing down again. First, let's focus on the news from China. China's National Day Golden Week, which used to be a booming business period, is unprecedentedly quiet this year, and all sectors are in a terrible state. After the National Day long holiday, the performance of physical stores has dropped sharply. Many stores can no longer hold on and are facing another wave of closures. Mr. Li, a citizen of Xiamen, revealed that Xiamen is no longer prosperous due to the large-scale withdrawal of foreign capital. And no one wants to buy houses, even if housing prices are halved. He has worked in Xiamen for more than 20 years and has contacts with fellow villagers from all walks of life. The National Day Golden Week, which used to be a booming business period, is unprecedentedly quiet this year. For example, no one goes to the barber shop anymore, and it is much cheaper to get a haircut on the roadside. Mr. Li, a citizen of Xiamen. Many physical stores have closed down, and some have closed one after another along entire streets. The rent for the stores is very high, and we can't afford to keep them open. Plus, there is no business. In the past few years, our fellow villagers gathered several times a month to eat and drink. But now we don't get together even once in half a year. The impact of catering and online stores has little to do with it. The main reason is that everyone has no money, so they reduce consumption. Wages have also fallen, but prices have risen again. Mr. Wang, the owner of a convenience store in Dongguan, said that China's economic downturn and people having no money to spend have led to the closure of a large number of stores. Some stores have changed owners several times a year and still cannot remain open. Going back to their hometowns to farm does not make money, and there are more and more homeless people on the streets. Mr. Wang, the owner of a convenience store in Dongguan, "Sometimes I don't have enough capital to keep the store open, and I can't even make enough money for living expenses. Business is bad, and I feel very depressed and anxious. There are many people who can't pay rent, and stores are closing down. My rent is hundreds of yuan a day, and I want to sell the store, but I can't. I still have children who need to go to school, and tuition is tens of thousands of yuan a year. I haven't bought a piece of clothing in 2 years." Pharmacies and small clinics that used to be popular have also seen a wave of closures. A Guangzhou doctor who goes by the pseudonym Wang Jian said that he went to work in a small clinic after retiring. After the epidemic prevention was relaxed at the end of 2022, there were too many patients to handle. This year, however, it is very quiet, and the clinic's rent is 12,000 yuan a month, which isn't enough to cover the cost. Guangzhou Dr. Wang Jian, pseudonym. China's economy is very bad now. There is no business. Many small stalls have closed. Many clinics have closed. And there are no patients. The boss is losing a lot of money, and I haven't been paid in a year. The vaccine was paid, but those people are greedy for hundreds of billions, and the people are very angry. A Sanya education and training operator using the pseudonym Liu Yong revealed that it is difficult to do business in China, mainly due to the serious corruption of officials. Liu Yong, pseudonym, a Sanya education and training operator. Nowadays, no business can be done at all. The biggest problem in China is that private property is not protected. The boss is a lamb to be slaughtered at any time. If you do business honestly, one person will blackmail you today, and another will blackmail you tomorrow. If they say they will cut off your power and water, they will. You simply cannot run a business in a long-term and stable manner. China's A-share. Chi-Next index sees the largest drop in history. China's 3 major A-share indexes fell across the board on Wednesday, October 9th. Among them, the Chi-Next index dropped by more than 10%, marking a record for the largest single-day decline in history. As of the close on Wednesday, the Shanghai Stock Exchange Index fell by 6.62%. The Shenzhen Component Index dropped by 8.15%, and the Chi-Next Index broke the previous record of an 8.91% single-day decline during the stock market crash in 2015, setting a new record with a drop of 10.59%. According to media statistics, only 294 stocks across the Shanghai, Shenzhen, and Beijing stock exchanges rose, while 5,039 stocks fell, of which 3,162 stocks dropped by more than 9%. In the latest wave of intense leak cutting by the CCP, a large number of young people in mainland China have become the targets of this harvesting. Most of them were born in the 1990s and 2000s and have never experienced the horrors of previous stock market crashes, let alone the CCP's tactics. Many rushed into the stock market with their parents' retirement money, their own marriage savings, and even money intended for starting businesses. Now, who knows how many will lose everything, go bankrupt, or resort to jumping off buildings or into rivers. It's tragic. In fact, when facing a stock market that has not been prosperous for a long time and has seen several severe declines in the past, a sudden, crazy surge is a red flag. At such times, one must be cautious, as it preys on human greed. Many believe they'll pull out after making a small profit. But don't underestimate greed. It will push you to keep delaying your exit, tempting you to add more positions. It's fine, I'll withdraw if it rises again. But by doing so, you may find yourself waiting for the inevitable stock market crash, filled with regret. While the Chinese stock market was in mourning, other countries remained unaffected. The S&P 500 rose 0.1% in early trading that day, nearing the record high set the previous week. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose by 155 points, or 0.4%. The Nasdaq Composite Index fell slightly by 0.2%. Indexes in other parts of the world remained relatively stable, with Japan and Germany rising by 0.9% and 0.2%, respectively. In the oil market, prices fell further. International benchmark Brent crude oil briefly broke through $81 at the start of the week before falling 2.1% to $75.55. The U.S. benchmark crude oil price dropped 1.8% to $72.23 per barrel. In the bond market, the 10-year Treasury yield rose to 4.04% from 4.01% on Tuesday night. The 2-year Treasury yield rose slightly, from 3.96% to 3.98%. The changes in yields are closely tied to the Fed's interest rate cuts. The total retreat, nearly 60% of Taiwanese businessmen consider leaving China.
The total retreat, nearly 60% of Taiwanese businessmen consider leaving China. In 2024, many companies from Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, the U.S., and Europe are accelerating the process of withdrawing production lines and assets from China. The departure of well-known companies and brands is creating a massive wave, which has been accelerating in the final months of the year. With the release of a series of heavyweight economic policies by the Chinese Communist Party, the A-share market rebounded strongly before the founding anniversary of the People's Republic of China on October 1st. However, the CCP's harsh intervention in the stock market has caused foreign businesses operating in China to feel insecure and at risk. American think tank experts pointed out that 57.4% of Taiwanese companies are considering leaving mainland China. In response, the Epoch Times interviewed 2 Taiwanese businessmen and a cross-strait economic and trade expert to analyze the mental journey of Taiwanese businessmen who had to choose to leave due to labor costs, supply chain disruptions, and changing policies after more than 30 years of reform and opening up in China. Many people have entered the market as the Chinese stock market has risen for several days under the stimulus of a series of measures taken by the Beijing authorities. However, Reuters pointed out that it is too early for foreign capital to return to China because few fund managers expect the Chinese economy to grow vigorously in the short term. But institutional investors, who manage more than $1.5 trillion in client funds, said that the measures taken by the Chinese Communist Party to attract more funds into the stock market and stimulate consumer spending have increased the attractiveness of Chinese companies, which are still undervalued. In September, the Center for Strategic and International Studies, CSIS, a U.S. think tank, published an expert study titled Diversification Rather Than Decoupling. Taiwan's Industry Responds to Geostrategic Risks. The results obtained after visiting 610 Taiwanese companies at the end of 2023 indicated that 57.4% of Taiwanese companies are or are considering leaving mainland China. If your competitors go, you have to go, Liao Jinjiang, a Taiwanese businessman who had run a business in mainland China for more than 20 years and withdrew from China in 2022, told the Epoch Times that in the 1980s, China suddenly opened up and was willing to let you set up factories. When your competitors go, you have to go. Because your competitors go to the mainland, their quotes are lower than yours, so you can't not go. You are completely forced to go. At that time, Taiwan was still in the era of killing Jew and pulling out Mao, the slogan of the anti-bandit and anti-insurgency movement. Zhu refers to Zhu Dai, and Mao refers to Mao Zedong. So how did they suddenly start running away one by one? Liao Jinjiang said that he felt as if there was a force behind him pushing him. Li Mengju, who was once the general manager of a technology company, also said, "The first batch went mainly for cost considerations, and the second batch went because if you don't go, you will lose your competitiveness." Li Mengju, from the electronics industry, said that almost all of Taiwan's previous generations of electronics manufacturers have withdrawn, mainly because U.S. President Trump launched a trade war in 2018. In recent years, due to Xi Jinping's strict suppression of freedom of speech, there was the so-called 709 human rights lawyers mass arrest incident, and local media in mainland China disclosed that Guangdong province arrested tens of thousands of people in 1 year. So Taiwanese businessmen heard some cases around them, including that some people in the Taiwanese business circle have been cut off, exploited. Li Mengju said, Taiwanese businessmen are basically very sensitive overseas. Once they hear that the news is wrong, they will slowly withdraw.